Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Duck Zone. I'm Sean. This is James. We are into week two of the NFL season, week three of the college football season. This is going to be a football heavy show as we are now kind of in the middle of September. And yeah, that's really it to watch, unless you're watching baseball, but we'll get to that in a couple weeks. That is heating up. But this is going to be a football dominated show. We're gonna just jump right on into it. James, what did you what was your reaction to Week One of the NFL season? What were your takeaways?
So I definitely got way too excited for Red Zone, which I don't know if it was my
Yeah,
excitement that led to an underwhelming offensive showcase in the NFL, but I woke up Sunday. I was so happy for fantasy and Red Zone and just football in general. And then I feel like I was just let down. Overall, I thought Thursday's game was fun. The Chiefs Ravens. I thought Friday's game was also exciting down in Brazil, and I'll get to that a little later. But overall, quarterback numbers seem to be down and offenses in general. I mean, there was a couple teams who broke out, but it was pretty underwhelming. That was my big takeaway from week one. Other notes I put down, I won't get too heavily involved with this because I just don't want to talk too much about it. But even before football started, we had the Tyreek news, so that was interesting. And the more I've looked into that and the more I've read, it, not a good look for those cops. Um, I saw the video, and yeah, it just was not a good look for those cops. We'll see if anything happens to them. But Tyreek seemed pretty level-headed for the most part in that situation, along with his teammates who came to his side. But that's all I'll say about that situation. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. We have some more Deshaun Watson news, which is interesting. Again, I'm not going to speak to that. I don't want to get down that whole side of things, but definitely a very strange man. I will say that he has some troubling things in his life. He needs to definitely figure out whether the NFL steps in or not. Who knows? And lastly, like I had mentioned about the Brazil game, the Packers Eagles, we saw our first quarterback injury, which is never fun to see. Jordan Love. Hopefully, he's not out too long. But a big takeaway from that, from what I've read, was that the field in Brazil was not great. So whether that led to the injury or not, or if it was the takedown on his ankle from the Eagles player, I don't know. But kind of harkened back to me. Um, I think it was the Super Bowl in Arizona when the field was like not done correctly. So yeah, those were kind of my big takeaways. How about you? What do you like?
yeah. I mean, kind of the biggest thing I took away from it was I thought the marquee matchups, spotlight games, the Thursday night game, the game in Brazil, Sunday night football. I'll speak to those through. The fourth Monday night game was a little bit outside of this statement, but I thought all those games were very good, very exciting, and very good football was played. Um, from overall those eight teams, I would say the Monday night game was kind of more dominated by the Niners, and at halftime, you had a pretty good feeling the Niners were going to win that. But the other three, I mean, Baltimore, Kansas City went down to the last play. Green Bay, Philly, you know, last drive, and then Detroit, LA went to overtime. Very, very good games. Those were your marquee matchups, and they were all in prime time. The funny thing is all the games that were thrown Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon, they were if you were really watching them and kind of seeing everything that was going on, they were pretty painful. Um, you know, the NFL really stacked their marquee teams, or not marquee, but their best teams in those primetime games, which makes sense. Um, Kansas City looks really good. Um, week one overreaction. They're going to be a tough team to beat, and three-peat looks like it's very possible. That's a 1 week overreaction. Baltimore's really good, and just I would say all 8 teams that played in primetime, I wouldn't be surprised if all 8 teams make it to the playoffs. It could happen. The shocking thing, what you kind of mentioned a little bit, is kind of how sloppy the play was, especially Sunday morning. There's a few teams that just look very bad. And I get there's going to be mistakes week one, there's going to be penalties, there's going to be drops, there's going to be things like that. But there's a difference between that and just looking very bad. Carolina looks very bad. Um, the New York Giants are not a good football team. Tennessee's really going to struggle. Um, so there's a couple teams that just look very, very poor. And then there's a few teams that just look offensively like they're going to struggle for a while. Some of them are, in transitioning quarterback situations. Denver being one of them, Vegas being another. Atlanta, kind of the same thing. That offense looked a little bit, granted they played Pittsburgh's defense, so give them a little bit of a wiggle room there. Um, it was surprising to see how some of these teams kind of almost felt like they were still very much in preseason mode, more than seasons I've seen before. So that was kind of one of my big takeaways. But the primetime games were very good, and those 8 teams that played in primetime looked really good. The only team that I thought actually that played in the morning afternoon slot on Sunday, I thought actually looked really good was Dallas. But we've seen this from Dallas the last few years, really good start of the season. They get all the hype, and then we get later into the year, and things kind of fall apart. So, but that was the only one that I thought was, okay, this team looks good.
Let's not leave off New Orleans and Derek Carr. He had a pretty good showing as well.
Yeah, that's true too. So, but we'll see what they do. Bouncing, they actually play each other. New Orleans and Dallas play each other this week. It'll be interesting to see how that goes down in Dallas's home opener. So let's just jump right into the picks, and let's fire them off if you're ready. So we'll
Let's
start
do
with
it.
our Thursday night matchup. You got Buffalo going down to Miami. Both these teams won last week. Who are you picking in Thursday night football?
I have Miami. I think Buffalo is just going to ride the wave of Josh Allen all season. And like you said, it's only been 1 week. I don't want to overreact, overlook things quite yet. So to me, Miami is right now the better team. So I have Miami.
I got Miami winning as well. Before I move forward, completely forgot to mention this. Last week, the both of us killed it. I went 14-2. James went 13-3. So we did well. So if you're watching this for gambling reasons, yeah, we did well week one. I got Miami as well. So moving to the Sunday morning slate, just mentioned this game. New Orleans traveling to Dallas. Both these teams also 1-0.
I like the Cowboys in this game. I think the headache of Dak's contract and CeeDee Lamb's contract is now that it's finally over. I think these guys can go to work. They have guaranteed money now to their names, or I guess, in their paychecks. Um, but I think we still need to kind of see what the Saints and Derek Carr really are, since they just beat a really bad Carolina team. So I like the Cowboys over the Saints.
I also will be taking Dallas. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I think Dallas is a very good team in September, and it's gonna be their home opener, so it's gonna be rocking. That defense looked really
And they
good.
also have a good defense.
Yeah,
It's not just New Orleans who has a good defense.
yeah. New Orleans, the Cowboys looked really good and made that Browns offense look really bad. Matchup: Tampa Bay going to Detroit, rematch from last year's playoff. I find it interesting that Detroit, first 2 games, they play the 2 teams back to back they played in the playoffs. But yeah, Tampa Bay going to Detroit.
I have the Lions just because they're the home team. I think this is going to be a huge offensive showcase. As we saw in week one, both offenses look pretty good. Lions not as great as the Bucks, but again, I don't want to overreact to just 1 week. So Look for a high scoring, maybe 3 touchdowns apiece from Baker and Jared Goff. I'll throw that out there, but I have the Lions over the Bucks.
I have nothing else to add. Detroit, I have winning in that one. Indianapolis heading to Green Bay. Both these teams coming off of losses.
I like the Colts here. In terms of the quarterback matchup, it would have been so much more fun to see Anthony Richardson and Jordan Love, just two young gunslingers, but I can't pick Malik Willis quite yet. I know he's got a plethora of wide receivers to throw to, but from what I saw in Tennessee, he has not proven me anything. I like that Colts team and Anthony Richardson to take down the Packers.
I think this game is going to be sloppy. I also take the Colts in this one. Jordan Love's injury, while they have a few extra days to kind of figure it out, Malik Willis and the time that we've seen him as an NFL quarterback, it hasn't been great. And he does have a lot of weapons, but this is a tough one going up against what I think is a pretty good Colts defense. I think the Colts probably take the Packers down by a field goal. I see this being low scoring and probably pretty ugly to watch on the offensive side at times. We got the Jets going to the Titans. Both these teams lost in week 1. Who you got?
So I don't want to call this a must-win for the Jets, but it's kind of closing in on that, I guess, for Robert Saleh. I've seen his name in the news as a guy on the hot seat, and I think Jets Nation would absolutely crumble if they lost to Tennessee this week. But I don't see that happening. I have the Jets over the Titans. Will Levis looked horrendous. That we might see a quarterback change coming sooner rather than later in Tennessee. I couldn't even tell you who the backup is. But Will Levis, for a week 1 overreaction, looked awful. So he has a lot to prove coming into this week. I still like the Jets. I like the Jets.
Yeah, I like the Jets big in this one. Wouldn't be surprised if this was a multiple touchdown win. Jets had a really hard week 1 assignment. Probably, in my opinion, the hardest week 1 assignment. You have to go cross country, play the NFC champions that are very pissed off. I never saw the Jets having a chance in that game, and I think the Jets are going to make the playoffs. I think Jets win big here. I think a lot of those fears go to rest. I think what we saw Monday night isn't really the Jets. Moving forward, we got San Francisco going to Minnesota. Both these teams 1-0.
I think the Niners are the best team in football after week 1. To do what they did without McCaffrey and for Jordan Mason to go undrafted and just absolutely torch the Jets defense was pretty impressive. I think the Niners are the best team in football. I think Vikings fans at least have a little bit of hope seeing that Sam Darnold can actually sling the ball around a little bit. Or is that just Justin Jefferson helping his quarterback out? And I don't know. I like the Niners.
I like the Niners too. Minnesota is one of those teams, over time, we're going to be able to write a little bit more of a story on. Destroy the Giants, but the Giants may be terrible. I'm going to take the Niners in this one. We got Seattle heading to New England. Both these teams winners. We're getting a lot of the same things. No splits here. It's so Seattle going to New England.
I like the Seahawks here. I know last week I talked about West Coast teams traveling East Coast and it's tough to play, but I think the Patriots, I'm not quite sure how they won in Cincinnati. That's might be their win of the year. I mean, like we've talked about last week also, Jacoby Brissett's not a terrible quarterback. He's marginal. But I think Geno gets it going. I think DK has a better game, especially if Kenneth Walker is healthy. I just think the Seahawks have way too many weapons, and I don't think the Patriots have any weapons on offense for that matter. Maybe Ramondre Stevenson a little bit, but who the hell are they going to throw the ball to? So I like the Seahawks.
7th game in a row we've agreed on. I've also got Seattle. We got the Giants going to Washington. Who do you got there?
I really wanted to go to the Giants with this pick just because they have a little more veteran leadership with Daniel Jones. But after what I saw, not to mention he's probably guaranteed to fumble the ball, once, maybe twice, because he seems to fumble the ball every freaking game. I have the Commanders here. Jaden Daniels looks pretty legit, especially as a runner. And Eckler looked really good out of the backfield catching the ball. So that 1-2 punch of Brian, I'm blanking on his name,
Robinson.
whatever the running back's name is for the Commanders, I can't think of his name, Brian, whatever, and Austin Eckler. I think they solid running, catching duo. I like the Commanders.
I also am taking the Commanders in this one. Feels like two organizations kind of a little bit heading in the different directions. Giants look terrible. Redskins, Tampa is a pretty good team. They just got to fix the defense side of the ball. But offensively, they look like they had some promise. I'm going to take the Commanders to win their home opener. We got the Chargers going to Carolina. I think I know where you're going with this one, but let's hear it.
I like the Chargers. The Panthers showed me absolutely nothing. Bryce Young has not improved at all. They're a young team. They have some young pass catchers on that team with, Xavier Legette. I guess I shouldn't say they have young pass catchers when you have Thielen on the team. Deontay Johnson had a pretty piss poor first game for Carolina, but I think they're just too young in terms of young tight end, young quarterback, young running back in Chuba Hubbard. I think the Chargers go over there, and I think Jim Harbaugh is the reason the Chargers win.
Yep, I got the Chargers as well. Carolina just looks so bad; it's almost impossible to pick them at this point. Cleveland going to Jacksonville. Both of these teams lost in Week 1. I would say both in pretty disappointing fashion too.
I like Jacksonville. I think Trevor Lawrence at this point in his career is better than Deshaun Watson. Deshaun hasn't shown me anything since he's gone to Cleveland, and now with the allegations looming over his head and the fans wanting a quarterback change with Jameis Winston as the backup, he almost has to have a good game or else his starting tenure might be in jeopardy. I like the Jags. I think Tank Bigsby is going to see a big role rushing the ball. Etienne's also still solid. He had an interesting Week 1. I wouldn't say it was great by any means. Brian Thomas looks pretty legit, so I like the Jags.
I'm also taking the Jags. I feel like it's a pretty good team. They just got to get clicking, and they just got to not make the stupid mistakes. They don't make those stupid mistakes, like fumbling on the 1-yard line. They beat Miami. Vegas heading towards Baltimore. This is the lot. There's 10 games on that 10 o'clock or 10 a.m. time slot, West Coast time. It's going to be a busy Sunday morning. But Vegas going to Baltimore.
I like the Ravens. I don't really have much to say about this. I think if you watch that Thursday game, you know that the Ravens are also a really good team. They were just a toe short of tying that game. I'm interested to see how Isaiah Likely plays. I don't know if Mark Andrews is cooked per se. I know he was in a car accident this offseason. So maybe they were just, easing him in. There has been a lot of talks that Isaiah Likely is a freak athlete, and that was definitely put on display. So I will be curious how Likely plays, but I don't think the Raiders have a shot. I like the Ravens.
I agree with that. I think Baltimore wins. I don't have too much to add on that side. Derrick Henry is also going to get going. That Baltimore team is kind of like, they played, in my opinion, the best team in football down to the wire, and Baltimore's still figuring stuff out. They're going to beat a lot of teams, and they're going to make a lot of teams look really bad. Going to the afternoon slate on Sunday, Rams heading to Arizona. Who do you got here?
I like the Cardinals here. I think Kyler had a pretty solid game. Second half, wasn't great. I thought the play calling was pretty bad. The Cardinals' defense also isn't great. Their pass rushing did not impress me at all. But I think with the non involvement of Marvin Harrison Jr., offensive coordinator Drew Petzing has to do something to get him involved. And it is a divisional game, and there's some weird stat out there I remember seeing that divisional games are typically within like 3 to 7 points. So hopefully State Farm Stadium's rowdy and helps the Cardinals pull the win out because I have the Cardinals beating the Rams.
I think this game is going to be close. These two teams, even in the years where one team is good, one team is bad, these two teams will always play each other tight. So I expect this game to be within a one possession score. I'm going to take the Rams. I think they're pretty upset losing that game in Detroit. Cardinals still have some things to figure out coming out of Buffalo. Marvin Harrison Jr. being the number one thing, how do you give him one reception? It's pretty mind-boggling to me. He'll get more involved. I believe the Arizona crowd will be rowdy, excited, and ready to go, but I think the Rams squeak this one out, and Arizona starts, unfortunately, 0-2 for us. Pittsburgh going to Denver.
So all reports have Justin Fields taking the first team reps and potentially starting this game again. I'm not sure it would matter. I think regardless of Fields or Russell Wilson, I think Pittsburgh gets it done. The Broncos didn't really show me anything. Their running back room looks like a 50-50 split, but no one really wants to take it over. Bo Nix didn't look great, so I'm going to take the experience of Pittsburgh and that defense.
I'm also going to take Pittsburgh, and it's purely off of the fact that Denver's offense could do nothing against Seattle, and I believe Pittsburgh's defense is well better than Seattle's. So if they couldn't score against Seattle, I don't think they're going to score against Pittsburgh. I take Pittsburgh here. Cincinnati, probably the biggest surprise of Week 1, being a loser. Heading to with a real tough assignment now, heading to Kansas City. Who do you got here?
I like the Chiefs. I think on paper, this game looks awesome with all the playmakers out there. Mahomes versus Burrow. I mean, the storylines are there, but, Jamar wants his money. He wants that $1 more than Justin Jefferson, and until he's given his contract, he might be kind of silently, not putting all his effort out there until he gets that paycheck. So without him, I don't think they can really do much. I like the Chiefs.
I also am taking the Chiefs, and this could turn into the biggest storyline going into Week 3. If the Chiefs win and the Chiefs win big, you're going to start hearing a lot of talk of what's going on in Cincinnati because they looked not very good against what we don't think is a very good New England team. Granted, if they lose and they score points, 0-2, but hey, they look good. If they look bad, there's going to be a lot of people being like, well, what's going on here in Cincinnati? It's been a few years now since they've, had that Super Bowl run. And if I remember right, they've missed the playoffs the last 2 years. No, they missed it last year, not the year before. They missed it last year. But, there's still going to be some pressure probably on there if this team starts 0-2 and they're not looking that good. Moving to that Sunday night game, Chicago going to Houston.
I like Houston here. I think Stroud just has a little bit more experience. And they built that team to win now, bringing in Stephon Diggs, bringing in Joe Mixon. Both guys looked awesome. Nico Collins is still there. The Bears might have the luckiest win from last weekend. They probably shouldn't have won that game either. It was like a pick six that basically won them the game. Caleb does have his own weapons, maybe minus Rome Odunze with that MRI on his knee or whatever was going on there. I don't think it's serious, but he is week to week. I just think that the experience of Stroud leads them over the rookie. So I like the Texans.
Cool. I'm also taking the Texans. Chicago got lucky with a pick six and also a block punt. You can't rely on either one of those two happening. Caleb Williams, this is gonna take a while. Um, he's very good, but it's tough being a quarterback in the NFL. There's going to be definite growing pains. He is just me saying it. He is not going to be last year's CJ Stroud. It's just not going to happen after what we saw week one. Houston wins this game. Uh, Caleb may be a great quarterback, but this first year I think is going to be a struggle, even with all the talent around him. Go into Monday Night Football, Atlanta. Go into Philadelphia.
Philly's a tough place to play. They probably have one of the best crowds in all of football, maybe in all of sports, with just Philly fans being crazy. I like the Eagles. I think the skill position players for the Falcons are there, but Cousins needs to show me something before I can start picking the Falcons to win. I know I picked them to win the division. I still think they can because they're in a bad division. But unfortunately, they're going to have to try to win that division 0-2 because I have the Eagles winning that game.
I also have Philadelphia winning that game. Um, we're going to move over to college football. James, I'm guessing you don't have anything else. We covered a lot of NFL right there. Is there anything you want to add?
Nope, I think we're good to go on my end.
All right, let's shift over to the college football slate. Um, Pretty busy college football slate last Saturday. Was there anything that you took away? Notre Dame, I know, obviously being the biggest upset. What was your takeaway from the college football weekend?
Yeah, that was unbelievable. I cannot believe Notre Dame lost that game. I mean, that shouldn't have happened, especially at Notre Dame. That's so bad. I mean, hats off to NIU. A hell of a game script and a hell of a statement to come into South Bend and just knock off a team that was already getting pegged as, oh, they went into College Station and beat A&M. They're going to run the table. This is a guaranteed playoff team. And, they still could be. If Notre Dame wins out, they very well could still go to the playoffs just now that we have the 12 teams. But yeah, that was probably one of the biggest upsets we've seen in a long time. I mean, I think I saw Notre Dame was minus 7,000 money line.
Jeez.
So, yeah, that was crazy. Other notes I thought Texas was absolutely dominant. To go into the big house and just destroy Michigan, that's a statement. I wrote down Penn State, Oklahoma State, K-State, Oklahoma, and Oregon all survived. They were almost on that Notre Dame level of at one point in all of those games. I think they were all. I don't know about Oregon. You might know better than me, but I know K-State, Oklahoma State, and Penn State were all losing at one point. Oklahoma barely won their game, but anyways, the point I'm getting at is those teams looked a little shaky. They survived. Tennessee, offensively and defensively, are the real deal. I think they're definitely a top 5 team in my eyes. That team is humming, and they crushed NC State, and I think they are a shoe-in, I think, for the playoffs. And last but not least, thank you, Cornhusker Nation, for shutting up Dion. And I don't want to hear about Colorado anymore. Like, why do we keep giving them media attention? Like, why don't we talk about Nebraska and their quarterback who is weirdly obsessed with Patrick Mahomes, Dylan Raiola? But anyways, beside the point, last thing I will say, thank you again, Nebraska, for shutting up Deion Sanders in Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, week to week, it's pretty much one of those things of win and survive and move forward. We could see that with Notre Dame. They looked great week one. They looked just how do you lose your home opener to Northern? It's weird. I mean, it's survive and just move on, and it's week to week. You're dealing with a lot of kids that are 18, 19, 20 years old. Anything can happen. I mean, it's all over the place. A lot of these teams can look really good one week and then look really bad the next week. That's kind of the big takeaway that I have to kind of harp on your Colorado Nebraska thing. For the first time, and I'm going to go the other side because Colorado's probably 6-6, and it's pretty much a dead story at this point. Nebraska is going to start getting attention. They're ranked. They're It may not be this year, but with this quarterback being a freshman, it's crazy to say because we haven't seen it in 25 years, man. 20 years. Nebraska could be back, which is weird. And yeah, they look good. They looked really good. Tennessee looked really good. I mean the few. I mean, in Texas looked fantastic. Um, and I think if there's one team after week two, I mean, things would have to go way off the rails at this point. Texas is probably the one team right now. It's like, all right, this team's gonna get in the playoff. I get it. Stuff can go really off the rails, but they've got two great quarterbacks that are going to the NFL. So they could lose a quarterback and still be fine. They're deep. Texas, I don't see it. They're gonna get in, but we'll see kind of how everything else falls out. It's just college football is way different from the NFL. One week a team can look great, and the next week they can just look terrible. So. And a lot of teams are still trying to figure that out, but I'm going to harp on that in a second. Let's jump into some of these games. Arizona gets their welcome to the Big 12 game, and it's not an easy one. Friday night, they head over to Kansas State. Arizona ranked 20, Kansas State ranked number 14. This probably would be game of the week. This is probably where game day would have gone had it been on Saturday, but it's not. It's being played on Friday. Who do you got?
I have my Wildcats winning, and the reason is because it's Friday the 13th. We're going to see some weird stuff go on. There's going to be weird plays. I know something weird's going to happen. But you said it best. Teams look great week one, a la Arizona and Tetero McMillan. Week two, we look terrible against NAU and squeak out a victory. McMillan had like one catch for like 6 yards or something, two catches for, I don't know, something. It was not great. People were speculating he might be like sick. I don't know. But yeah, you said it best. College football is so weird. It's like one week you look unbelievable, then the next week you look really bad. And then watch Arizona go into Kansas State and their offense starts clicking again. At least that's what I hope. I think regardless, it's going to be a one-score game, but I like Arizona on a weird Friday the 13th.
I also have Arizona edging out Kansas State. I think both these teams look better than they did last week. It's almost like both teams were looking ahead to what they knew was going to be a harder matchup. But I've got Arizona in this one. Let's jump to Alabama, who's looked very good through 2 weeks, going to Wisconsin.
I think on name recognition alone, this game looks fun. Alabama, Wisconsin. I think Alabama wins big, even though they're on the road.
I agree. I'm going to take Alabama. I don't have too much to add to that one. This is where College Game Day is heading. LSU, 16 in the country, going to head to South Carolina. Gamecocks coming off a big win against Kentucky.
I like the Cox, not just because I wanted to say that, but because I also think they're a good team. LSU still has a lot to prove to me. They do have a good quarterback. I like Newhauser, whatever his name is. But from what I saw in that Week 1 game, which is now 2 weeks ago at this point against USC, I just don't think Brian Kelly has full control of that team yet. And I think South Carolina is going to shockingly... Do we consider that an upset, even though they're the home team? They're not ranked, are they? Or are they ranked?
Yeah, they're not ranked. I don't know what the line is, actually, but I also do have South Carolina, but I don't know what the line is. From a ranking...
We'll call it an upset.
We'll call it an upset, yeah. But I'm not entirely sure.
LSU's ranked, so we'll call it an upset.
Yeah. Okay, I got South Carolina in that one. I think Brian Kelly's hot seat actually starts to heat up a little bit as they start, in my opinion, 1-2 with a very difficult SEC slate ahead of them. One of the few, actually, I think it's the only one. It's the only ranked matchup on Saturday. 24 BC going into 6 Missouri. There's only 2 top 25 matchups this week. We've already talked about Arizona, Kansas State. This is the other one. Who do you got?
I like Missouri absolutely crushing BC. I've read a lot about BC's quarterback, and he's fun to watch and a good player, but BC to me, they haven't been anything in football for quite some time. I think they're a fraud at 2-0, and I think Missouri's the real deal. They were top 5, if not top 10 last year in the country. They have a stud receiver. Missouri does. I like Missouri by double-digit touchdowns.
I am also taking Missouri. I don't have too much to add to that. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what the ACC is at this point. The only team I kind of feel good about is Miami. I think Miami's good. The rest of the ACC, I'm still trying to figure out. Going on to the next one, we got the Civil War. Number 9, Oregon going into Oregon State.
Yeah, it's weird that we're having this game this early, especially because they're not in the same conference anymore. I still like Oregon. I know they had a tough game against Boise, and one quick note about Boise, I think they have the best running back in the country. But I think Oregon gets it done. It's a rivalry game, so it might be weird and closer scoring than we think, but I'll be honest, I have not seen any Oregon State film. I've not read anything about Oregon State. I don't even know what conference they're in, or they're in the Pac-2 with Washington State, but I like Oregon.
Yeah, the thing is, so I watched a lot of the Oregon game versus Boise State, and I watched bits and pieces of the game against Idaho. Oregon is as talented as they come in the country, but this team is basically a mess at this point. It's very rare that you start 2-0 and after week 1 you drop 4 spots, and then after week 2 you drop another 2 spots. Third 3 in the country, they're now 9. They're 2-0. They're a mess. Like, a lot of dumb penalties, a lot of just mistakes here and there. They're getting saved out of games by just purely being athletic. I mean, they're very fast, but as a football team, they're very messy right now. I have Oregon. This game, at this point, they're favored by like 16, but I mean, it is a rivalry game. They could lose this game. This game is always tight. Oregon's got to clean it up fast because they can't continue to win this way. Yeah, it's a little scary right now. But the thing is, if this team gets humming, yeah, they're the best team. They're one of the best teams in the country. They just have not come together at all. At all. It was weird that they got pushed around on the O-line and the D-line for a majority of the game against Boise State. That is concerning, knowing that we're going into Big Ten country where there's a lot of good line play. You can't get pushed around by Boise State. We'll finish off like this. Notre Dame, who lost? Going to Purdue. Notre Dame fell to 18.
I just want to see how Notre Dame rebounds. I think they win, but Marcus Freeman has a lot to prove because he seems to lose a lot of these NIU type games. He lost to Marshall the year before, so it's almost turning into a trend. So I don't want to put him on the hot seat per se, but this is concerning if you're a Notre Dame fan when you have losses like that. So I just want to see how they rebound. I think they come out and just absolutely pound Purdue if they are super pissed off after that home loss. But I guess we'll see. I do like Purdue to win that game, though. Or excuse me, I like Notre Dame to win that game.
I got Notre Dame as well. I have a hard time believing they're going to drop 2 in a row. If they do, the conversation for Notre Dame of this season is pretty much done at that point. So I see Notre Dame winning that game. Just kind of a fun little stat for you as we try to figure out who's going to be the best conference in the country. So far, combining all the records, the Big Ten Conference 29-5, SEC 25-7. Big Ten with 4 more victories over there, a couple more games played. The only conference undefeated, the Pac-2. Both Washington State, Oregon State going into Week 3 at 2-0.
Hell yeah.
We'll see if that continues on as we get deeper into the season. Anything you want to add before we jump off of this episode?
No, not really. I will be watching that Arizona-Kansas State game somewhere in Arizona. I have another bachelor party to attend, and hopefully I'm drunk and Arizona wins.
Nice. Sounds good. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, thanks for listening. Enjoy football.